Before the Roaring Twenties and the infamous crash of 1929, America had already endured a financial cataclysm of staggering proportions. This was the Panic of 1873, a crisis that shattered the nation's burgeoning economy and plunged it into a depression so profound it earned the grim moniker, the Long Depression. It is a forgotten chapter, yet its lessons resonate with chilling clarity for historians and investors alike. The mid-19th century saw America emerge from the Civil War with an insatiable appetite for expansion and industrialization. This era, often romanticized, was also a crucible of unchecked ambition and speculative fervor. The financial landscape, largely unregulated and decentralized, was ripe for systemic vulnerabilities. Investors, fueled by the promise of vast new markets, poured capital into ventures with unprecedented enthusiasm. This period of rapid growth, however, masked deep structural flaws within the nation's financial architecture. The stage was set for a collapse that would redefine American economic history. The 1870s were defined by the relentless march of the railroad across the American continent. These iron arteries promised to bind the nation, opening up new territories and markets. Yet, this grand vision was financed by a speculative frenzy, with massive investments flowing into railroad bonds and securities, often with little underlying collateral. J. Cook and Company, a titan of post-Civil War finance, stood at the epicenter of this boom. Cook, a celebrated financier, had successfully funded the Union War effort and now championed the Northern Pacific Railroad. His firm became synonymous with the nation's economic aspirations, drawing in countless investors with promises of prosperity. However, the Northern Pacific project was overextended, its bonds proving increasingly difficult to sell. Cook's firm, heavily invested and illiquid, found itself in a precarious position. On September 18, 1873, the unthinkable happened. J. Cook and Company declared bankruptcy. This single event, a tremor in the financial bedrock, instantly triggered a seismic shockwave across Wall Street. The news spread like wildfire, igniting a panic among investors who had placed their trust and capital in the seemingly invincible Cook. This sudden loss of confidence exposed the fragile foundations of the entire financial system. The speculative bubble inflated by railroad dreams and easy credit had finally burst, signaling the end of an era of unbridled optimism. The failure of J. Cook and Company was not an isolated incident. It was the first domino in a catastrophic chain reaction. Banks, deeply intertwined through correspondent relationships and shared investments, began to falter. One after another, financial institutions across the nation closed their doors, unable to meet the demands of panicked depositors. The New York Stock Exchange, the very heart of American capitalism, was forced to shut down for 10 days. This unprecedented closure, the longest in its history at that time, underscored the profound depth of the crisis. Trading ceased, liquidity vanished, and the machinery of finance ground to a halt, leaving investors in a state of utter despair. The impact rippled far beyond the financial districts. Railroad construction sites, once bustling with activity, became desolate monuments to failed ambition. Half-built tracks stretched into nowhere, rusting steel and abandoned equipment, marking the sudden cessation of progress. Boomtowns, born of railroad dreams, transformed into ghost towns overnight, their populations fleeing in search of work. This systemic breakdown revealed the inherent dangers of an interconnected financial system without adequate regulatory oversight or a central bank to act as a lender of last resort. The crisis quickly transcended national borders, exacerbated by a global economic downturn that had begun with the Vienna stock market crash earlier that year. America's financial woes became a stark reflection of a worldwide vulnerability. As the financial panic subsided, a far more insidious crisis took hold, a grinding economic depression. By 1874, the industrial heartland of America began to seize up. Factories, unable to secure credit or sell their goods, shuttered their gates, casting hundreds of thousands of workers into unemployment. The promise of industrial prosperity evaporated, replaced by widespread destitution. The human cost was immense and immediate. Breadlines and soup kitchens became grim fixtures in urban landscapes, as desperate families struggled to find food. Evictions became commonplace, forcing countless individuals and families onto the streets, their meager possessions all that remained of their former lives. The social fabric began to fray under the immense pressure. In New York and other major cities, the desperation ignited a new form of social unrest. Workers, facing starvation and systemic neglect, organized the nation's first mass labor protests. They marched through the streets demanding jobs, relief, and a voice in their own economic destiny. These demonstrations, often met with police brutality, highlighted the stark class divisions exacerbated by the crisis. What began as a financial panic evolved into the Long Depression, a period of economic stagnation and suffering that would last for over 6 years. This era of hardship profoundly shaped American society, fostering a new awareness of economic inequality and the vulnerability of the working class. It was a stark reminder that financial crises, while born in boardrooms, are ultimately paid for by ordinary people. Historians and economists view the Panic of 1873 not as an isolated event, but as a crucial precursor to future financial calamities. It served as a chilling dress rehearsal for the Great Depression, which would strike 50 years later. The parallels are striking. Both crises were fueled by rampant speculation, particularly in new technologies. Railroads then, stocks, and real estate later, and both exposed the fragility of an unregulated banking system. The 1873 panic highlighted the dangers of over-leveraging, the absence of a robust central banking system, and the widening chasm of wealth inequality. Policymakers and financiers, however, largely failed to heed these warnings. The lessons of systemic risk, market bubbles, and the need for financial safeguards were either forgotten or deliberately ignored in the pursuit of short-term gains. The subsequent boom of the 1920s, characterized by similar speculative excesses and a lack of regulatory oversight, demonstrated this historical amnesia. The cyclical nature of financial crises, driven by human greed and collective irrationality, became painfully evident. The Panic of 1873 stands as a stark reminder that history, when unexamined, often repeats itself, often with even greater devastation. For investors, the 1873 crisis offers invaluable insights into market psychology, the perils of herd mentality, and the importance of due diligence. For historians, it illuminates the complex interplay between economic forces, social unrest, and political response, shaping the very trajectory of a nation. The Panic of 1873, though overshadowed by the Great Depression, remains a pivotal moment in American history. It was the crash that broke America, revealing the inherent vulnerabilities of a rapidly industrializing nation. It underscores an enduring truth. When financial systems fail, it is invariably the ordinary citizens, the working families, who bear the heaviest burden. This forgotten chapter serves as a somber testament to the destructive power of unchecked speculation and systemic fragility. It compels us to look beyond the headlines of today and understand the historical precedents that continue to shape our economic realities. The past in this instance is not merely history. It is a vital guide to navigating the complexities of our present and future. This is the Scholar's Ledger, where history, faith, and power are revealed. Subscribe, share, and join the search for truth.